Now, one other thing you're introducing here in Torq V1 is an LSP spec. You're integrating that, I believe. Can you talk to me a
Yeah.
bit about what the LSP spec is and why is that important?
Hmm. So we're actually working on improving that part of the feature as well right now, and it will be released a bit later in August. So the first version of it is essentially just being able to request um, channels from other LSPs, and this is something we're expanding upon, and I can go deeper into this a bit later. But it's a feature where we're using the LSP spec. The LSP spec is just a standardized way of how nodes communicate to request or sell channels, so that you can have any provider. So I can buy a channel from DZ, from Bolts when they choose to offer that, from yeah, any sort of operator offering channels. So, for example, I think Breeze also is working on following this spec, and that makes it so that it's much easier to switch between providers of liquidity.
Right. How is a decision made on who that liquidity service provider should be? If I'm going to this LSP spec and I'm saying I want a channel, how am I deciding who to pick from?
Hmm. So that's something that's also evolving. Right now, we can only choose DZ actually, because that version of the spec only he had implemented. But in the next release, there's going to be a lot more choices around it, and it's going to be a lot smarter. And this is something we see. I think we'll see the market evolve a lot on. We've just started on the LSP part of the industry, in my opinion. We see routing nodes, we see all kinds of other businesses piling in and seeing that their liquidity and their connection in the network is actually really valuable, so that they can use that to sell channels inbound to other who needs it.
Hmm. Why was this standardization necessary? Like, who was the first to kind of say, "Hey, this is a problem. We need to fix this"?
Hmm. So that's actually Synonym, John Carvalho and his team there. I think they defined that LSP spec group, and they worked on that with a lot of the others, a lot of other companies in the industry. Um, and the reason that it's necessary is that, imagine chat today. You have a million different chat applications, and what they do under the hood is actually very, very similar. It's like small data object saying like, here's the message. This is who it's for. Um, yeah, basically, that's it almost. And it could have been a spec. It could have been like email. Email has like a spec or a protocol that shows this is how you send email, and everybody agrees on it. But chat never got there, and most likely because a lot of vendors wanted lock in, they wanted all kinds of different effects that at that point started to become important. And I think with Lightning, it's very important to start thinking consciously about the choices we make now and how that looks further down the road. Because making the LSP spec makes it so that more services can flourish around it, more businesses can operate and innovate around this than it would have been possible if somebody just first built their solution, and then another company builds their solution, and then everything is just this custom setup that everybody has a hard time following and using. So it increases the usability of Lightning itself, and that actually sort of it plays into something else that I think is really important. The more we can define sensible specs and sensible security defaults that are very hard to avoid, especially on the security issues and privacy issues, the better Lightning is going to be. So we should really try to make these sort of standards together when we can, to avoid something like the missing chat protocol that we have in the internet today.
Do you think that we will see vendors or maybe merchants or liquidity service providers decide to not implement the spec and try to lock in their users, their customers, just like how some of these chat apps have ignored this kind of like idea of standardizing on email and kind of built their own system?
Definitely, there's going to be people trying anything, right? But I think I think this is why it's important it happens early and now, because I think the effect is much greater when somebody has built a huge network effect and locked everybody in, and then somebody proposes like a competing open solution, then it's much harder than if we from the get-go build this standardized solution. Everybody agrees that the world is better when we use this agreed upon solution, and you can win the market in other ways. There's other network effects, there's other product modes, and you can have both.
Right.
Have a good spec and a good product.
Can you outline the business use case for someone who's considering being a liquidity service provider, for them to join in and collaborate on this LSP spec effort, from a business perspective? Because I get the kind of like altruistic side of like, let's all work together, build this spec, and have it so that we can all interoperate. But from a business standpoint, telling someone they're not going to be able to lock in, certain customers or certain liquidity or something like that, what's your pitch to that business?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's about running your business well and having liquidity be predictable. So you can actually talk about service level agreements with certain companies that use your liquidity. So for example, a wallet who doesn't provide their own liquidity to their self-custodial clients, but uses your service. And there you can guarantee that you have liquidity available when it's needed, and that you have a reliable service. Your nodes aren't going down all the time. You can also have a branding effect in that people trust you, and there's also geographic effects that people trust the geography that you're working in. So there's a lot of effects around there where you can build really good products around the LSP spec. And of course, the upside is that you actually have a bigger market, because you don't have to grow the entire market. You don't have to push the entire world on your protocol or your way of doing things. So you grow with the industry.